All right, so yeah, go ahead and do a live over here. I don't really do lives over here enough, so I'm gonna start trying to get on here more. Do a couple of late night lives or early whenever I can. But I wanted to just do a live stream, talking about this boxing match coming up. Everybody's been wanting this fight, including myself. But I just want to talk about a few things in this live here. Like I said, yeah, I need to start doing some more lives over here as we get closer to fight night. But yeah, y'all know the fight, Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. And they had did something the other day. It's like a week ago, maybe like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago on PBC. They did this little segment with both Spence and Crawford where they had to grade each other in each of these different categories. And some of them were kind of close, some of them kind of truthful, but some of them were just funny, man. Like, of course, y'all heard Errol Spence, and y'all can see Errol Spence's response to the last category here. So, in all seriousness, with me, I just want to kind of go through and give my actual rating. I guess the score was out of 10. So I just want to kind of go through and give my actual score for each of these fighters. And then, you can do your average score at the end, however you want to do it. Um, but yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago. They had asked each fighter, Spence and Crawford, like, what do they rate each other in this category? Like they said, hey, Spence, what do you rate Crawford's footwork? And you can see his his rating for his footwork here, or his defense, right? So I just wanted to go down each category and give my rating for each fighter myself. And then later on, if y'all jump on this live and y'all catch it, y'all can do the same thing. Like I said, I would have loved. Hold on here, real quick. I would have. I'm just pulling something up here because I think there's some interesting information here. All right, 1 second here. Because I was going to play back the original one here, but I was like, nah, I don't want to do that because you might get a copyright strike or whatever. They're already doing that with every little thing you put on your channel. Hold on here. But yeah, y'all can see the whole thing right here. Y'all can actually see the ratings that they gave each other. All right, so each rating listed here, you got footwork, defense, power, speed, punch resistance, conditioning, ring IQ, and of course the resume, right? The resume. That's like one of the key factors here that everybody, really likes to rate these guys and, really kind of match them up. Who's the better fighter? Well, let's take a look at the resume, right? All right. So let's see here. All right. So footwork, y'all can see Errol Spence. He rates. Hang on 1 second. Man keeps on moving my screen here. My StreamYard screen keeps on acting up. All right. So footwork here, you can see Errol Spence. He gives Terence Crawford a rating of 6.0. See, Crawford's rating for Spence, 7.0. Spence's rating for Crawford, his is on the right. So you got Errol Spence. He gives the footwork of Terence Crawford 7.0. All right. And for Crawford, he gives Errol's footwork a 6.0. All right. And I actually think those are about right. Those are about right for both fighters. I think that, Terence Crawford, he uses his footwork a little bit more. He's a little bit more slicker as far as how he sets his punches up, how he can switch stances as well and kind of confuse his opponents, from southpaw to orthodox. To me, that's a part of the footwork because, sometimes he'll have the orthodox lead foot on the outside, or he'll switch to southpaw, and then he'll kind of confuse his opponent so he can line up the right jab, right, and land a straight left hand. So Crawford, I think his footwork is a little bit more slicker in that fashion. Can't really, I'd say probably like a 7.5. I can't really give him like an 8 or 9 or 10 because he still is in that pocket sometimes and he can still get hit. Like when I look at guys like Floyd Mayweather, their footwork, and somebody even like Prime Roy Jones, who was mostly majority of his time was footwork. He could get in and get out, and that type of footwork was just really flashy. So yeah, I'd probably give, for my rating for Terence Crawford, I'd give him like a 7.5. And for Errol Spence, yeah, I'd say his footwork is probably like a 6.0 because he covers all the basics. Um, even even though people always say he's too flat-footed, to me, flat-footed is a part of his footwork to get his punches off. Keeping your feet flat, the way he fights is good for him because he gets off his punches and he lands some of the hardest uh, body-breaking punches in the division, right? So yeah, I would say footwork helps him get off his punches. It keeps him planted. It keeps him balanced, and he's good at walking his opponents down. So even though he's not fighting off the back foot a lot or using a lot of angles, I would say Errol Spence, he does well at walking his opponents down and cutting the ring off. Almost an octagon like MMA here, but yeah, he knows how to cut the ring off. So footwork, I would say 6.5. He just doesn't do a lot of flashy things with it. All right, defense. All right, for defense here, let's go with Errol Spence's defense for Crawford, man. This was funny. He gave Terence Crawford's defense a 3.5, and Errol Spence gave Terence Crawford's defense a 3.5, and Terence Crawford gave Errol Spence's defense a 6.0. He seemed a little bit more serious there. Um, for me, Terence Crawford, I don't think his defense is a 6.5. I think part of his defense is his offense, and he's also good at using that long jab. And again, part of his defense is footwork. He can make guys miss. He can slip. He can definitely block punches. He can tie up. So he uses several different types of defense, but he does get hit. He can get hit with big shots. The chin is open sometimes. He can get drawn into that punching match. I think for defense, I would say Terence Crawford, even though he's not like this defensive wizard, I would give Terence Crawford's defense about a 6.5. I'd say it's like about a 6.5. Errol, I know people are going to say he's been buzzed a lot or he's been buzzed a few times in the Ugas fight, but I would actually give Errol's defense 7.0. I would actually give Errol's defense just a little bit higher. I would say Errol's actually like a 7.0 because he's a little bit more fundamentally sound with his defense. He does keep a high guard and he will kind of, take a lot of steam off of the punches. He will keep the guard high and he will like deflect a lot of punches. So neither one of them are like, again, like Mayweather-esque defensive wizards. They don't go in there and just shoulder roll and, do all this fancy type of movement. But I think to me, Errol Spence, his defense is a little bit more basic and it gets the job done for the type of fighting style he has. So I would say, to me, Errol is a 7.0 when it comes to his defense. And Terrence would be like I'd say 6. 6, all right? All right, so let's look at power. Errol, he's giving Crawford 6.0 for power. Crawford, he's giving Spence 7.0. All right. Okay, so for natural power, this was kind of it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky because you have to kind of look at the type of power these fighters are bringing. And then you also kind of have to factor in who they fought. For me, I would say Terence Crawford, he is an accurate puncher. He's a very precise hitter. He knows how to hit that sweet spot. That's how he gets a lot of guys out of there. With quickness comes power. And he's knocked out 10 people in a row. And I know we can say, okay, it's the resume. Some people say those guys are sitting ducks, to be knocked out by Terence Crawford, but I still have to factor in some of that as, natural power. Because even with his jab and even his basic punches when he's boxing, he can get a lot of guys respect. He can get guys respect with, even some good, sharp, stinging body shots. And that's the thing about Terence. I would say he's more like a stinging puncher. His punches sting more. Whereas Errol, he's like heavy handed, like lead hands, not really like Julian Jackson type of power with Spence, but he's got that like I said, like heavy handed type of power and very physical. His punches, very driven home. Power for Terrence. Since he has knocked out 10 people in a row, I'll give him an 8.0. I'll give him an 8.0. I'll give him 8.0 on that because, like I said, part of his power comes with that precision. And even with that, you still have to have some type of power. You turn your punches over right, hit with those two knuckles, it's still doing something. Because you have some guys who turn over the perfect punch and they still ain't got no power, But with Terrence, with his intentions on how he lands and connects, I give him an 8.0. Errol Spence, power is different. And you also have to factor in like the guys he's fighting and how he lands his punches. I think Errol, he hits just as hard, maybe even harder. The thing is, you can see his punches coming. Like when you see him coming, they don't hurt as much, right? Well, guys can brace themselves for it. Let me put it that way. Like when you see Errol's punches coming, you can brace yourself for them, but they still do a lot of damage. Like, look at the Danny Garcia fight. Like if he's standing in front of you, he lands like a good combination. Danny can take the time to block some of them, but some of them will get through, but they still do their damage. They're not as quick as Terence Crawford's, where he hits you with those quick shots where boom, guy goes down. Like that Benavidez cat, Benavidez and even Sean Porter. But see, whenever he fought Sean Porter on the inside, he's hitting Sean Porter with some hard punches, but some of them you can still see coming. Some of those shots you can see coming, you can brace yourself for. That's why he's not knocking those guys out fully, but he's still like physically damaging. I'm gonna say the power is kind of tied here because I think that style wise I think style wise it kind of, the way they fight, it translates their power different. So I'm gonna say Errol, I'm gonna say he's about 8.0 because he's done some serious damage to guys that want to stay in there. They're still getting beat up, and then you got to look at the guys on the resume, like big guys like Ugas. They have a higher punch resistance than like a Khan or a Brook, but they're still taking a lot of damage in there. That's showing that Errol Spence still has a lot of power. So I think power is about tied to me. I'm gonna say they're about tied. They just bring their power in different ways. For speed, Spence gave Crawford 6.5 for speed. Crawford gave Spence a 5.0. I definitely think Crawford, he has more speed than Crawford has more speed than Spence. I definitely think that because again, that kind of factors in why he has more knockouts with his style of punching. I would say Spence. Well, I would say for me, Crawford's speed, I would probably give him like a 7.3, 7.5, something like that. He's not like really, really quick with his hands. Like he doesn't throw like these quick flurries like Sugar Ray Leonard or anything like that. But I think he has that type of speed, that gets straight to the point. For Errol, Errol, like it's average. I think his hand speed is average. Errol's hand speed is average, and for what he lacks in speed, he makes up for in timing and high volume. And that's the thing. Like you might see the first one coming and the second one coming, but he still got 3, 4, 5, and 6 coming. Errol throws a high volume of punches, so it's not all about hand speed with him. It's just about volume and work rate and making sure that he's turning those punches over, so he does a lot of damage. So yeah, I would say Spence, he's probably like an average, average. He has average speed. That's about right. Punch resistance, Spence gave Terence Crawford a 4.0. Crawford gave Spence a 7.0. Yeah, for punch resistance for Crawford, yeah, we've seen him buzzed a little bit, but when he gets buzzed, he comes right back. He does come right back. He can get shaken, but some of the guys that he's fought, they haven't been able to follow up. But we never know how he would react in this type of fight. Will he have time to react against Spence, who throws higher volume and keeps coming? But as far as his punch resistance, I say Crawford's punch resistance, I would give it about a 6.0. He can be moved with punches. He can be rattled. He's been down in that Kavaliauskas fight. I know a lot of people don't want to mention that, but yeah, the Mean Machine fight, he was down. Punch resistance, yeah, I would say it's probably like around 6.0. Uh, Errol, I would say about 7.7, 7.8, like that. I think he has a pretty good punch resistance. The guy's been through a lot, but he still keeps on coming. He was in the pocket with Sean Porter for 12 rounds. He was able to take his best shots. Ugas was going to the body on Errol, but it never seemed to really like discourage him. Like that stiff jab that Ugas was landing to the body never really discouraged him. He still came back in that fight, taking some of Ugas's best shots. Danny Garcia, so he's been in there with some guys that can punch, and he's been able to deflect and take shots on the guard and still get stronger and stronger. It's Kell Brook, in each fight. So I would say, I don't know, I would probably say Spence here, probably like a 8.0 when it comes to punch resistance, just kind of built for that physical style of his. Conditioning, Spence gave Crawford a 7.5. Crawford gave Spence a 9.0. Yeah, when it comes down to conditioning with both of these fighters, I think they both have great conditioning. I think Crawford's conditioning, I would probably rate his as probably like I would probably rate Crawford's higher than 7.5. I probably would rate it at like a 8.8 or 8.7. I think Crawford, he can fight rounds. He's a boxer. He can move, and he's strong. He can tie guys up, and he doesn't lose his pop in his shot. So I think he prepares for these type of fights. These long fights, and he can keep going. I think he has good conditioning. He is a 12-round fighter. So I'd probably say he's like probably like 8.8, 8.9. And I think Spence, I would leave him there at like 9.0, just because of the fact that with his type of style, it's kind of proven that he doesn't really lose his pop and he gets stronger, even like in the Kell Brook fight. Like Errol Spence, he gets stronger in a fight, So I would say, yeah, his is probably like a 9.1, 9.2. He's kind of got that freakish conditioning where he can keep going, especially when he was training with his old trainer, Blu-ray. That kind of show like whenever he's in the right camp with the right strength and conditioning coach, he can really, really take it to that level. But yeah, even without him, you can see that Spence gets stronger in a fight, and he doesn't lose power on his punches either. He can still throw at a high volume. Even in that Ugas fight, he's still throwing and landing and doing damage with each of these punches. So yeah, you can see his conditioning has been tested in these 12-round fights with Porter, even in the Peterson fight, Ugas for 9 rounds, Danny Garcia for 12. So yeah, I definitely rate his condition as pretty high. Ring IQ, Spence gave Crawford an 8.0. Crawford gave Spence a 9.0 for IQ. Okay, see, even Bud is respecting Spence here. He's giving him a 9.0. Like most people don't. Most of these like legends in the game, they don't even give Spence that high IQ like rating to me. But I think Spence has a great IQ. So Spence, he gave Crawford an 8.0. I would actually rate it, yeah, like an 8 point. Yeah, I probably rate it like an 8.0. Yeah, I'd say he's like an 8. I think Crawford, he sometimes he can start off a little bit slow, but he makes the right adjustments in the fight. He kind of takes a couple of rounds off to download information from a guy that he can take away that guy's weapons, and then he can just start getting into a groove. Sometimes he makes some bad decisions, and I think that comes down to the natural heart. Sometimes he'll want to dog it out with a guy, so sometimes that'll take away from the IQ, so I won't take a lot away from it, but yeah, I'd say his IQ is, let me see. I'd say his IQ is about, let's say, a 7.8, just because of some of the times he will try to go in there and trade. It can kind of take away from choices. You know what? Since he's undefeated, 8.0. We'll keep it at 8.0 because he hasn't made that bad of a choice yet. So I'm gonna say Crawford's at an 8.0 when it comes to ring IQ. Spence, I don't think people give him enough credit for what he does and how he's able to do it. He takes the fundamentals of boxing and runs with it, and he applies those fundamentals to his physicality and his strength and his overall conditioning and how he chooses to fight. And I think Spence deserves a higher IQ than a lot of the experienced legends in the game give him credit for. I think Errol Spence, he can box, he can punch, and he's definitely not like a one-dimensional puncher that goes in there and just goes toe to toe. He's not a Gotti, or he's not a Margarito. He's actually setting punches up and blocking, and setting up the uppercut and throwing some very educated punches. So I would say, for what he's been able to do with his style and remain undefeated, I'm going to give Errol Spence, I'm going to give him about the same. I'm going to give him an 8 as well. 9 a little higher because that kind of pushes into that realm of like, guys like a prime James Toney, or like a Floyd, even like a Winky Wright. I think they have high IQs like that. But I would say Errol and Terence, again, they kind of tie at the ring IQ. They're both like an 8, I think, and that's kind of applied to how they've been able to both go, get this far with their styles in the game. Resume. All right, I know this was all kind of fun and games here. This was kind of fun and games for Errol Spence, just a little bit. Errol Spence gives Terence Crawford's resume a 0.5. A 0.5, and Crawford gives Spence resume a 7.0. All right, so in this one, I disagree with both of them. I think I'm gonna. I know where he's coming from, because this is kind of like from the press conference. He was like, "Yo, Errol, Errol." It was like, "Oh man, Crawford, who you fought? You ain't fought nobody, right?" And I know to a certain extent we can all kind of agree with that. Like, Terence Crawford has a lot of good accomplishments, but some of the names on the resume we don't really see anymore. Like Victor Postol, and wow, man, like Julius Ndongo, man, like I did not know he had racked up that many losses. Like the other day, like a couple weeks ago, it was like maybe about a month ago, when I looked at Julius Ndongo's resume, I was like, whoa, man, this dude racked up that many losses. He fell off that hard. It was like after he lost to Crawford, he lost to Prograis, then maybe like won one more fight in between, and then he lost like 6, almost all back to back. So Julius Ndongo was like undefeated when he started. Then after he lost to Crawford, it was just like downhill from there. Like, his other biggest win was Ricky Burns. So really, like, what can we say about Julius Ndongo, Victor Postol, Yuriorkis Gamboa? They were all like good fighters, but not like elite, like not like this, from this crop of like dangerous elite fighters that really were gonna give Bud this tough fight. Like, because honestly, like, I picked Bud in every single fight, and none of them were like I was saying, I picked Bud, but it's 50-50. I picked Bud by, landslide in all of those fights. As far as his welterweight resume, Amir Khan, that really wasn't, the best fight. Kell Brook, Kell Brook was giving him, some fits in the first round when he was orthodox, landing his jab. But the minute he switched southpaw, boom, boom, he put him out of there, right? Like round 4. Sean Porter win, of course, that was legit. That was all what we wanted to see, to really see him in that realm. Jeff Horn, that fight I give him full credit for because that was one of the first fights I said I want to see Bud fight when he goes up to 140. Take the WBO belt from Jeff Horn, lock it in, and then kind of go from there to fight the better fighters, right? So, yeah, the Horn fight, that's a good fight. And Porter. Who else was there? Yeah, Mean Machine. Then there was Benavidez. It looks good on resume. He's knocked out everybody at welterweight versus what Spence has done as far as, stoppages. He's been able to stop everybody. But again, when it comes down to it, it's more about accomplishments when you really look at it overall. So I give Bud's resume at welterweight. I'm gonna give it a 6.0. I'm gonna give it about a 6.0. Because he stopped all these guys. So they're somewhat names. They should be able to bring somewhat of a challenge, but they didn't. So it's a little bit above average. Again, no knock to Bud's pure skills, but those, the guys he's fought, they really weren't that many kills. The only one is really like Porter. Like Porter was the one that was bringing it for a certain period in the fight, and Porter actually was winning the fight in some people's eyes, right? So I think even Andre Ward said Porter was winning at the time of the stoppage. So that was a legit win. Yeah, Crawford, I'm going to give his resume a 6.0. Just above average. Errol Spence, pretty much, I do agree with a lot of people feeling like he's done a lot of the heavy lifting at 147. Early in his resume, before, he's been able to get in there with the champions. He's fought some average guys too, Chris Algieri. I believe Chris Algieri used to fight at 140. He went in there, did what he was supposed to do. What's the other guy's name? The South African Van der Veen or something like that. He stopped him. They were all just average fighters. Leonard Bundu, Keith Thurman fought him to a decision. He was able to knock him out. Most of those guys you really don't see anymore, but those are the guys that you want to see him go in there and destroy at the early time of his career when he's still a rising contender, right? All right. But the belts, you got to look at the belts. He's got 3 belts at welterweight and who he's taking the belt from. All right. So the first belt, he went to the UK, fought Kell Brook after about 8 months off. I give him full credit because it's been 8 months, since the broken orbital bone, the Golovkin. So 8 months is plenty of time to recover, in my opinion. Because, there's some fighters, and I'm telling y'all this in boxing, because in MMA, there's some fighters who suffer fractured orbital bones. They come back after 3 to 4 months. Like, inside scoop on that. Yeah, like, healing process doesn't take over a year. But Kell Brook had plenty of time to recover, to me. So 8 months, back at his legit weight, he was fine, right? So, yeah, Kell Brook, he goes over to the UK, tough physical fighter at the time. Kell Brook had his moments in that. It was some back and forth in that fight till Errol Spence made some good adjustments going to the body, taking away of Kell Brook's jab, which Kell Brook was landing early in the fight, and winning the IBF belt overseas. A couple years later, he unifies with Sean Porter in a pure dog fight. That was prime Sean Porter. Terence Crawford fought a good, solid Sean Porter too, but this Sean Porter was just like going right at it. Errol beat him at his own game. He went in there, fought him to a split decision, and dropped Sean Porter in that fight. That was the WBC belt, right? Comes back after the detached retina and everything, and fights a game Ugas. And stops Ugas for the WBA belt. I know a lot of people wish that was the Manny Pacquiao fight, but Manny Pacquiao lost to Ugas, so fights Ugas instead. And wherever the belts are, that's where he's getting it. So all 3 of these belts came from some legit champions, To me, he's kind of like, I would say, like, it's just kind of like having, let's say, like back in 2003, like if when Roy beat John Ruiz for the WBA belt. That's how I see Crawford. He's kind of like the Roy Jones in the heavyweight division. Like if he stayed, and Errol Spence is none other than Lennox Lewis. He's got all the other belts, and he is the legit heavyweight because he's been here longer and he's beat more guys, right? So that's kind of how I see it. So yeah, Errol, he's done the heavy lifting in this division. All 3 belts are from legit, solid guys. Also, has a win over Danny Garcia. And we give him credit for Mikey Garcia, right? Because Sugar Ray Leonard said he would beat him, right? Roy Jones said that Mikey Garcia would beat him, right? So if he had that much stock in beating Errol, I mean, we got to give him some credit. I mean, I knew, though, as an expert, I like to think of myself that Mikey Garcia was a bit small, but I'm just saying in the fashion of the way these veterans are thinking and the way they think that Mikey had what it take to beat him. I mean, guess we got to give him credit for that fight too, huh? So yeah, resume. So I give Bud a 6.0. I'm going to give Errol's resume. I'm going to give it an 8. I'll probably give it an 8.0. I give it 8.0 because I think it is a better resume than Terence Crawford's at 147. Of course, Terence has more accomplishments, when it comes down to a three division world champion, and he's a undisputed champion. So not taking away from any of that, but I'm just kind of matching them up as far as resume at 147. So yeah, I would say Errol's is an 8.0. Now, if he had if he had like Keith Thurman on there at some point, like early on, like if he got a chance to beat Keith Thurman, and maybe who else? I'm trying to think of some other names at the time, like Keith Thurman, not like Collazo, but yeah, even let's say if he had Keith Thurman, that would definitely bump it up there, like prime Keith Thurman, not now, but yeah, like prime Keith Thurman. So yeah, I would say Errol's resume is about an 8.0. It's definitely a better resume at 147 than Terence Crawford's is. So yeah, those are my ratings, guys. Like I said, I can see where some of I'll say the ones I'll close in. I know that Spence was just kind of joking about the defense and the resume, but he knows that Crawford's not going to be a pushover, and Crawford's defense is not that bad, and Crawford may have not fought everybody he's fought at welterweight, but he knows that Terence Crawford's coming to fight, and Terence is not going to be an easy fight. And I think the way Terence is rated Errol, he's also thinking the same thing. When he rates Errol Spence's conditioning at a 9.0 and ring IQ at a 9.0, I think he's really taking this fight seriously. I think he understands that, Errol is much more than, what people are giving him credit for. But yeah, I think Spence also thinks the same thing, man. So it's going to be crazy, man. But yeah, let me get up out of here, y'all. I just wanted to come through on here. Like I said, I don't really do too many lives, but I just wanted to drop a quick one here and give my thoughts as far as, where I rate these guys. And y'all can come back and listen to it. But yeah, make sure y'all subscribe. We almost getting to a 900 to 1,000 over here. And like I said, I'm trying to drop more lives, but I will do a live for the actual fight when it comes out, on fight night. So hit that like and subscribe. I'm out, y'all. Peace.